Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. Welcome to Coverings Day 3. How we doing? We okay? A little bleary-eyed. I see some coffee. Irish coffee. Yep. A little Starbucks. The mermaid over here. Awesome. Hey, I'm Alex Smith with the National Tile Contractors Association. Really want to thank you all for being here. I've got Matt Wellner, the training team manager, with me today, being my hands. We're going to talk through grouts today, and we're going to keep this schedule on time today, all right? So here we go. I just want to take a moment, and I'm having a moment of being overwhelmed, of being in this room where there is so much knowledge right here, and so many people who care so much, care about the products they're making, caring about the product of their installation. Yep. You know, and we had, I don't know if you caught Ardex, they did a thing on grout yesterday evening to close out. Mapei just did a thing on grout here. Now we're covering grout. Does that seem a little overkill for grout? I was thinking about this at 4 o'clock this morning, and I'm saying no too, and I'm getting some heads shaking no, so I'm with ya. One of my biggest pet peeves on a beautiful tile job is a crappy grout job. And it really can make or break not only the appearance and aesthetics of your tile job, but what your finished product is. Thanks, Matt. So, same tile, white, black, gray. Very, very different looks here. So you can really change the tone, the feel, the energetics of a space by making those color selections with your grout, right? So, so in addition to the aesthetic side of it, we get to go into the technical side too. So at the NTCA, like, our mission is teaching to the national standards. And so ANSI, I feel like people in this room know what ANSI is. That's great. I'm in a lot of rooms where they're like, nope. American National Standards Institute. We have 6 distinct categories for grout in ANSI. We're going to go over 4 of those today and the reasons why there's different ones. And not only are there distinct standards for the material, but there's also standards for the installation of those different types of grout, because they're all serving a similar purpose, coming from a different place or a different material or a reason why you're choosing that grout. So I'm going to start with one that a lot of people get intimidated by, and that's epoxy. Who's scared of epoxy out there? I know I was for a long time. No, I'm in a room of veterans right here. All right, that's what I like. Awesome. Okay, so Matt's starting out with some epoxy over here. This is a 2-part epoxy from ANSI 18.3. So it meets our chemical resistant level of epoxy grout and tile setting adhesive. So this particular grout can actually be used to set the tile as well when you're in an environment that needs more resistance to various chemicals. Right? So, so things about the epoxy grout that are a little unique are we have to manage our time and our space with them. Because once they set up, boy, do they set up. I had a beautiful board here the other day, and Matt came and messed up half of it for me. This is going to be really hard to get off. You might even be able to see a little bit of the hazing here. So on this half of my board, I went so far as to do my final light draping drag of my damp microfiber here to get that last haze of epoxy off. And you can see we did a pretty good job. I didn't use any cleaner. This is just my grout job that I did over here while we were setting up our booth the other day. And then we messed up one real bad. Well, the thing about 100% epoxy that falls in 18.3 in ANSI is it's 100% solid epoxy. So that's different than our 18.8, which is emulsified epoxy grout. That particular product's only going to be able to be used in certain situations, and it's not as robust as our 100% epoxy. places you'd want to use this. Places where you need light chemical resistance. There are some epoxy products that go even higher, exceeding that standard, that can go into your industrial grade epoxies. And then if we're in like heavy chemical areas, we're going to want to use a fern grout. Anyone heard of fern? Yeah, okay, a fern. Okay, this is a really interesting compound, the fern, because they call it the 5 ring, the closed ring, and it's a chemical compound that won't let any other chemicals penetrate it. So it's our most robust. It's for like highly chemical resistant areas. Our epoxy is going to do great in our hospitals, in our kitchens, in our pools, because it's 100% solid. So it will really hold up in those full-time submersive environments. Now, you can see Matt's getting there. Epoxy takes some time. A little wet? Yeah.
Too wet to start
So, yeah. So you get a little work time with epoxy to be in this particular ANSI standard. That epoxy has to be workable for 80 minutes. That's one of the tests it has to complete. It has to be able to be water cleanable for up to 80 minutes. Now, do we want to work an area that's going to take us 80 minutes to clean? No, we do not. Epoxy comes in very small portions that are specifically pre-mixed or pre-measured for us in 2 parts. Because once you put that hardener in, you've activated it. Then you're actually going to want to dump the entire amount out of your bucket onto your dry floor and work that, because you're going to have more workability and more life with an epoxy while you're moving it around. Here's a really cool thing about epoxy. If it's hotter outside, your epoxy is going to be much more fluid, but guess what? It's going to set up faster. And if it's colder, it's going to be more viscous and stiff, but you'll have a little more workable time with it. You can actually set your whole bucket down in water. Now, you don't want that water getting in your bucket. Some hot water, if it's too thick for your workability, and get it to become a little more fluid for your work time with that epoxy. What'd I miss, Matt?
That's all I can do.
That's all he can do. We're going to move on, okay? Yep, good job. So, yep, right here. Yep. So next we're going to move to, yes, a sanded grout that meets our high performance ANSI standard. We have 2 categories for cementitious grouts: the standard and the high performance. That's 118.7 is our high performance, and then we're going to jump to 118.6 with our unsanded over here, which is the lower performance. They're very similar products. They're going to work in very similar ways. Either category can be sanded or unsanded product. Our main differences are our high performance cement grouts are going to be more water resistant than our standards. Still might require a sealer, but they're going to have more resistance, and their PSI pressure, their solidity is more dense. So your PSI is higher, your water resistance is, in percentage, lower. So we're at about a 5% water resistance in our high performance grout. That's because in addition to the aggregates, they've added polymers, latex. You can actually, there's some standard grouts that come with an optional latex additive that you'll use in your mix in place of part of or all of your water, and it will move it up into that next ANSI standard to become a high performance cement grout. So with our cement grouts, like I said, I feel like I'm in a room of pros here, so I'm not going to get too in-depth into it, but we're starting with our sanded grout here, and so that's for an 1/8 inch joint and up. 1/8 inch and up to a 1/2 inch. That's going to be the way that it's going to perform the best. If we get too thin with these grouts, even with this epoxy, which has aggregate in it, it's not going to perform to its highest quality. When we're working with our standard, more traditional pressed tiles that are a minimum of 3/8 inch thick, we're going to want to leave at least 2/3 of our grout joint available to receive the proper thickness of grout as well. So we got to keep those joints tight and clean, you know what I mean? A little sponge swipe there, you know? You want to clean out around those leveling clips before that sets up. We want to try to avoid going back with a razor and chipping our beautiful tile job. So if you look really closely in the fine print on a lot of our leveling clips, it actually recommends we don't use them as our spacer. Now, have I used a leveling clip as my spacer? Perhaps. But one reason that they're recommending this is because they actually want you to go down a size in your leveling clip so you have a little wiggle room around it. That's why there's a 1/32nd leveling clip. You know we can't have a grout joint 1/32nd? Our minimum grout joint in any application, and that's with a perfectly rectified, perfectly sized tile, is 1/16. And that goes back to that performance of that grout. We need that 1/16 to get the full performance of that $80 bag of grout we just paid for, because they're not cheap anymore, are they? No, they're not. So that leveling clip going down a size, so even if you're at a 16th grout joint and using your spacer, your leveling clip gives you a little wiggling room to get it loose out of your joint without risking chipping your tiles there. Make sense? All right, any questions so far? Am I talking too fast? I get excited. All right, we're going to move on.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second here. One thing that I do want to point out, Alex and Kate have done a great job of making me seem like I don't know what I'm doing, so I want to clarify one or two things here. Are these finished? Absolutely not, but I'm kind of watching my time, and I'm up here working the material, and I can feel this epoxy needs to sit just a little bit longer. I've done an initial wash, and all I'm doing is making a mess. I need to leave that alone. I've done circle motion here. I've got the bulk of the material off with this sanded grout, but at this point, that grout joint needs to set up. The more I wipe this right now, I'm just going to be removing product causing a low grout joint. One other thing with this sanded grout, this little demo board that we have here, is we've got a calibrated tile and a rectified tile. If you were to look close at this darker black tile, the edges are more rounded over. Whereas this rectified tile, nice, sharp, clean, crisp edges. So if I was to go a little bit low, wipe this a little bit too soon, it might camouflage it just a little bit. Here, this is going to be a lot less forgiving, and it's really easy to see a low grout joint with this rectified tile. So we have to pay attention to not only the grout, making sure we're selecting the right product, but we don't want to wipe it too soon and hollow out those grout joints. Where do you want to go next, Alex?
Yeah, we're going to move right to sanded here, yeah? So another thing I'd love to point out is our grout floats. We've got a lot of options these days in grout floats. So we started off with an epoxy, so you're going to want a very rigid edge. So this is a firm, rubberized grout float that has a very, very rigid edge because we want to use that float to clear as much of that product off the surface as we can. Because as Matt said, you have to be careful. You want your epoxy to fully fill those joints and be flush with the surface in your finished product. So we don't want to do a lot of wiping with our damp sponge because we're going to dip out those joints too much, especially on a large tile like a quarry tile where we got a big old boy of a joint, right? So then when we're moving on to our cementitious grout, we could use a soft rubber. So this is a foamed back rubber. It gives us a little more workability to help us work our grout fully into those joints and not leave air bubbles as we're moving. And then we can tip it up and get enough product off the surface to do the rest of our work with our sponge. There's also some amazing sponges out there specifically designed for various steps in your grout work. There's actually some companies that are designing sponges for your initial wipe and additional smaller pore or microfiber sponges for your final 45 to remove that haze so you're not having to work too hard after you've set up. We also have cool things like neoprene floats and some that are in the middle there for things that make sense to use that. How we doing, okay? All right, awesome, great. So one thing I want to point out about what Matt is doing now, so we've moved to our unsanded. Our unsanded is exactly what it means. There's no big aggregate in it. This is for two reasons. One, because it's designed for joints 1/8 inch or less. How small can our smallest joint be? A 16th. So from an 1/8 inch to a 16th when we're using our unsanded grouts. The other thing is, if we're using very sensitive faced surfaces, this bad boy, I'm pretty sure I could scratch with my nose. Yeah, I've got an Italian nose, so it is aggressive, right? So, yeah, so our unsanded grouts aren't going to scratch our tile as much. You can see I really worked at this one. I did this one in a sanded grout. Can you see those scratches on there? Yeah, that was just from a sanded grout. I will say I worked extra at it with my grout float, just to make a point here. But this is the same tile that Matt's setting, but he's now using an unsanded, which is no aggregate, so it's not going to scratch surfaces as much. Now we have to be mindful of what our joint spacing size is when we're using a sensitive tile, because we can only go up to an 1/8 inch joint with an unsanded grout. Yep. Anything else there, Matt? Ready to move on? So Matt's doing a great job even on this glass, which is super easy to smear as you're doing your work. You don't want to over sponge your grouts because with all of them, they are water sensitive before they're cured. So if we're over sponging, particularly our cementitious grouts, we're going to start rinsing our dyes out. We're going to start diluting it. Ever had a grout where you come back and you can swipe a finger off it and it powders up like fairy dust? Way too wet. And that can happen just with over cleaning. So we're going to want to hit it with that one circle and you get one swipe on your pass. Any other haze you're going to come back and deal with afterwards. That might be able to be done with something as simple as a microfiber. You might need to use a product that's a haze remover to help get that pristine final look on your grout. Now Matt's moved to something really exciting. This is our single component grout, or in ANSI 118.19, this is a organic single component grout. We actually don't even mix this. You tear the lid off the bucket and you begin using it. One thing that's a requirement, a standard to meet this ANSI category is your color consistency and stain resistance. Why? We're not mixing the grouts. We don't have the opportunity to pre-blend multiple bags to make sure it's all a consistent color. So when we open that next bucket, we've got to know it's going to match the previous bucket we were just using. Now, what's the other thing we know about organic materials? What's something else in the tile industry we use that's an organic material? I'll give you a hint. Mastics. Anyone using mastics? So what's the thing we know about mastics? They're water sensitive, right? So we can't use mastics in highly wet area. Now with these newer grout technologies, we can use them in a shower, in a wet space. We need to make sure they're fully cured before we introduce any water to them. Places we wouldn't want to use them is fully submerged. So we don't want to use them in a pool. We don't want to use them in a steam shower. We don't want to use them in an intermittent steam shower because they'll break down over time with that heat and that vapor. But they're uber convenient, right? They look good. They've got a great color. They're easy to work with, creamy and smooth. You need no water for mixing the grout because it's already mixed for you. Now you're going to need some water for cleanup. With this particular product, you're wetting your surface first. It's the only one of our grouts where part of the instructions is to actually dampen the surface because that's going to help it be a little bit more workable. Now, we don't want standing water on our surface because we're going to dilute it. Then we need to be almost as careful in our cleaning with it as we do with our epoxy because it softens with the introduction of additional water. So we need to take our time, do our swipe. We're also, have you done a little dainty? Oh yeah, he's going to get to it here. We're going to show this microfiber drag across the tile. It is the daintiest thing I've seen.
I don't do dainty.
Oh, I know. I'll do it. It's fine, I'll do it. My other most daintiest tool is the finishing tool for our continuous flowing cements. Yeah, our flowable cements. Anyone using these in their surface prep? Yeah? No? Yes, I'm a big fan of pourables, okay? We want to be prepping our surfaces because almost every surface we walk onto is not ready for tile. It's not ready for tile unless you're working with a very, very detailed contractor who is coming in and surface prepping for you. Surface prep is a separate itemized item that we do. It's separate. It's not, oh crap, this floor's not flat enough. It doesn't meet my 1/8 inch and 10 feet on any continuous span throughout the floor. I've been doing this 21 years, never have been on a floor that meets that. Brand new home construction, trusses, see the video of them sliding the level across it, still will not meet, oh, I had a bunch of those somewhere, still will not meet the standard for tile installation. So there's another step in there. Now the tile guy can do it, tile girl can do it, but you get paid more for that. Or you can go to your general contractor, your specifier, and say, hey, I am super excited to do your tile installation. It's not ready for me. I can do it, or you can do it. Yeah, so here goes Matt with this swipe. Did I give you enough time, Matt? Awesome. Look at us being right on schedule, too. Oh, so Matt's he's right. He's not being dainty here. There you go, Matt. Yep. So damp, this is actually how it shows in a lot of the technical data sheets is just dragging your microfiber across it because they don't want you to dig anything out of those joints. Just take as much of that final haze off across the top surface as possible. How am I doing? Did you keep up with me? Yep, so far? What questions do we have? No? Did I say anything new? Did I say anything that you're like, yeah, boy, you're speaking to the choir? Yes? Okay, I'm going to say yes, I did that. All right. Thank you very much. A couple other things I want to point out to you, some other really useful resources. So in addition to ANSI, there is also Grout Selection Guide in the front of the TCNA Handbook 2025. It's been updated some, so you're going to want to take a look at that. Chapter 10 in the NTCA reference manual, it's over 30 pages on grout. Because do you know what area? I hear it from all of these manufacturers in the room, they get calls about the most is grout failure. It's an important piece. It's not an after step. Yeah, you don't want to send the new guy in to grout without him being trained, right? You with me? Also, on NTCA's YouTube page, which is open to the public, Tile TV, there's 2 excellent webinars from industry leaders about grout that just came out this past year. So I'd encourage you to go look those up. And I think I'm doing so good with time, I want to take one more second to acknowledge Matt Wellner, the training team manager. He has worked tirelessly for 6 weeks, y'all, no weekends, getting 7 completely unique demos ready for this show. Can we give Matt Wellner a hand? Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you all for your time. We're around all week. Try the shrimp. Come to our booth right over here. It's got the big white halo there, and we'll talk more about grout, or I'll geek out about anything else tile you want to. Yep, thank you. Appreciate it.